Right, so welcome to this collaboration event, this historic collaboration between Imperial College Islamic Society and the Imperial College African Caribbean Society, the first that we're actually having. And this is being run as part of our Discover Islam Week campaign. So this is a campaign that we're running for you guys, and purely for you guys, over this week. This is the first major event that we're having, Islam and Black History. And we've got two esteemed speakers that we've brought down today to talk about this. The first of them will be Sheikh Alyas Karmani, who is an imam actually, based in Bradford. And he's been involved in doing work with the Muslim community, with the Muslim youth for about 28 years now. He's a psychologist by background. He's actually done a lot of anti-racist activism. So he's been a senior race equality officer for the Commission for Race Equality for 4 years. And he's also the head of, he was the head of race equality from 2002 to 2007. And as well as that, we've got our second speaker, Brother Abu Khuzaima, who is one of the leading and most prolific entrepreneurs and youth workers, who's been working for many years with youth in schools. So hopefully you guys will enjoy that. First we're going to have a recitation by our esteemed reciter, Brother Yusuf. So I'm just going to go to the computer and if I can welcome you to the stage.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إنما المؤمنون إخوة فأصلحوا بين أخويكم واتقوا الله لعلكم ترحمون يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا يسخر قوم من قوم عسى أن يكونوا خيرا منهم ولا نساء من نساء عسى أن يكن خيرا منهن ولا تلمزوا أنفسكم ولا تنابزوا بالألقاب بئس الاسم الفسوق بعد الإيمان ومن لم يتب فأولئك هم الظالمون يا أيها الذين آمنوا اجتنبوا كثيرا من الظن إن بعض الظن إثم ولا تجسسوا ولا يغتب بعضكم بعضا أيحب أحدكم أن يأكل لحم أخيه ميتا فكرهتموه واتقوا الله إن الله تواب رحيم يا أيها الناس إنا خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم إن الله عليم خبير.
Beautiful recitation, mashallah. So if I can welcome Sheikh Alyas Karmani to
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. Dear brothers and sisters and friends, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Peace be upon you all, alhamdulillah. I know it's been a long day, guys, come on. Assalamu alaikum. Okay, that's better. Alhamdulillah, you're in the room with me. Okay, and more importantly, with Ustad Raymond as well. You know, alhamdulillah, I'm always impressed every time I hear our respected brother. Brothers and sisters, you know, I want to begin, obviously, as someone who's been involved in anti-racist activism for a long time, over nearly close to 40 years. I grew up in South London at a time when I was a very alone Pakistani working class kid in a white working class community, and there was a lot of racism. It was a daily reality for us. And so it was inevitable that I went into the anti-racist movement. And what I found, that was amazing about that particular movement as a movement for social justice and change, was profoundly Islamic in its values. Why? It was about everyone who believed in that objective to eradicate and fight racism in every way, shape and form it manifests itself in, working together with a common unity. Black, white, Asian, okay, Muslim, non-Muslim, it didn't really matter. We were all fighting racism. It's quite sad then when I saw, as a race equality activist over the years, that movement fractured. And instead, what we find now today is rather than have a common purpose of standing against social injustice wherever it takes place, we actually turn on each other. It's called the discourse on internalized oppression from a sociological point of view. Here I'm in the Institute of Science and Technology. So, just think about, what's interesting is this. It's the same, and no doubt Raymond will talk about it. When slaves were revolting in America and in the West Indies against their slave masters, what they found, which was interesting, is that when they hung a slave, when they lynched a slave who ran away, it galvanized everyone against the oppressor. So they thought, this isn't good, this doesn't work, so let's do something different. And what they did instead was that they said, let's give some positions of authority so they control others. Let's give some favor. Let's oppress others. So they divided and conquered. And divide and conquer, interestingly, has been that strategy that's been used, interesting you'll find, from the time of Cain and Abel up until our time and no doubt in the future. That's why coming together as brothers and sisters from the human family of the children of Adam, coming together in this way, fighting aggressively, is so important. And I really commend the Islamic Society for running this particular talk. It's the second time I've done it in 27 years. So it's not a subject which is up there as a big subject that is on the, especially Islam and Black history. So only last year we did it in Newcastle University, and now, alhamdulillah, we're doing it here. And I'm glad we're doing it with the African Caribbean Society to show solidarity between societies fighting against a common oppression. And this is the Islamic principle, cooperate with one another in righteousness and goodness, and not in sin and transgression. So where we see good, we cooperate with that good. Now, just before I get started off, the way that I'm going to talk about it is, what does Islam actually teach? And this is the question, Islam and Black history. Islam, as a religion, the Quran, as the word of God, directly communicating to us, is profoundly anti-racist and colorblind. And I'm going to show the reality of that, and the lofty principles and ethics and values that we have. Islam is absolutely amazing in terms of on paper, in the books. But the real question is that question there. Islam is anti-racist, but are Muslims? I remember when I used to do the talk more generally on Islam and racism, and then I stopped doing it for a period of time because I found that my own community was one of the most racist communities that I've ever come across. And there is ingrained self-hate and hate of others, and kind of Muslim conflict issues and tribal issues, which essentially is the same manifestation of that same hatred. This is the thing. This is about us actually recognizing what Islam, the big difference between what Islam actually teaches and how Muslims put it into practice. May Allah Ta'ala enable us to, have those noble characteristics. Ameen. But just to begin with, when we talk about Islam and Black history, and I normally do this in an interactive way, but I've got to, I'll leave it open to questions as well. When I look at the last 100 years, and I look at a Muslim who's truly legendary. And what I mean by legendary, some of you might have heard me talk about this before, okay? What I mean by legendary is that, you know, you have role models, you have heroes, and I believe you have legends, yeah? The legends transcend everyone. That means that they go into everybody's home. They affect people, whatever their background is, you know, and they are truly universal. You know, everyone embraces their legendary qualities, and people are inspired and motivated by them, okay, you know, on a day-to-day basis. So that's what we talk about when we talk about legends. And usually I ask, okay, who in the last 100 years, 50 years, okay, has been legendary from the Muslim community? That means they have universal appeal, they go all over the world and they impact on everyone. And it's interesting, people will give me different names, and although those people are very notable in themselves and legendary in a particular way, generally I find it comes down to two individuals who repeatedly come up, and we had there an amazing, beautiful picture of them at the beginning. Malik al-Shabazz, rahimahullah, Malcolm X, and Muhammad Ali. Two legends from the Muslim space that transcend the Muslim community and have universal appeal because of the values and qualities that they held. And what's interesting, I always say about Muhammad Ali and Malcolm X is this. This is the amazing thing. First, okay, they were converts to Islam. They weren't born Muslim in that sense. Okay, and they came from very humble origins. And they used the God-given talent that Allah blessed them with for the purpose, ultimately, of creating a better world in terms of social justice in particular. The other interesting thing about them is that they are self-educated. They didn't go to the universities and colleges, certainly didn't come to institutions like this to learn formally. But, you know, Malcolm X, as we know, that whole story in his biography where he talks about when he was in prison and how he went from A to Z in the dictionary and scribed it all down, and by the end of his term in prison he'd read every single book in that library. You know, self-educated. Didn't learn formally in an institution like this, but taught in the best universities in the whole world. Well, just like with Harvard, Oxford, Cambridge, you name it. Just as with Muhammad Ali. And so it's quite amazing. They go against the norm of where power lies in the Muslim community. A black convert today in London, I want you to think, because it's about being honest here, a black convert today in London, how are they perceived? And I'll tell you what I used to hear in the community. If they're white, they're all right. If they're black, get to the back. You know, and that's what I would hear. You know, and just to give you, I live in Bradford. I'm a Londoner, that I live up north in Yorkshire. And what I find in Bradford, there's 150 mosques. And even though Islam has been in Africa for 13 centuries, and Africa has a rich Islamic heritage of scholars and scholarship, in Bradford, one of the most populous Muslim cities in the country, we have not a single black imam in any of the masjids there. So, you know, and likewise I ask you about London as well, and I'm a Londoner, I'm here. Apart from those African masjids that have been set up because they don't feel that they have expression in the South Asian or the Arab mosques, they create their own structures. Really, where are the mainstream African and Caribbean imams out there? And again, it goes back, we recognize that the two Muslim legends in the last 100 years have been Malcolm X and Muhammad Ali. You know, there's a big difference between the reality and our ability to actually empower and enable that process. So it's just something to kind of think about in terms of this question. So, you know, this, like I said, this subject, you know, we began with a beautiful verse in the Quran, and really this is our reference point. This is the reference point in terms of Islam's actual position on race. And I think, you know, as being an activist for many, many years, I've never come across a statement as clear and as definitive as this. So Allah Ta'ala addresses all of mankind. Ya ayyuhan nas. All of mankind. Okay? We created you. Inna khalaqnakum min dhakarin wa untha. We created you from a single male and single female. All of us across this globe, 7 billion of us in this vast planet, all of us are the children of Adam. All of us, as Muslims, we believe, have the same origins. From Adam alayhi salam, the first man to walk upon the earth, and his wife, Hawa, Eve. This is our Muslim belief. And then from that, إِنَّا خَلَقْنَا بَيْنَ ذَكَرٍ وَأُنثَى وَجَعَلْنَاكُمْ شَعُوبًا وَقَبَائِلَ لِتَعَرَّفُوا. Allah created nations and tribes. Yani Allah created diversity. Diversity is a beautiful thing, my brothers and sisters. I would hate for everything to be the same and people to be the same. I love the whole tapestry of humanity. I love the whole spectrum of colour and expression. I had a really interesting experience once growing up in South London, and I remember as a 17-year-old going to Casablanca, first time. And I was in Casablanca, and I was on the beach in Casablanca, okay, and this is in the 80s. And what I was amazed by for the first time, and I saw the diversity in Moroccan society. I saw African brothers, European brothers. There was no sisters on that beach, by the way. Okay. It was a very male beach, I have to say. African all the way to European brothers, every shade in between. I'm literally saying, I'm there looking at this, because my experience in London is that, you know, we were always victims. And I saw everyone on that beach, just came, you know, on that beach, the whole rainbow. Okay, all of us together. Okay, and you know, it was just an experience I'm sharing with you. Okay, diversity. What a beautiful thing. What an amazing thing. What a wonderful thing. I remember, you know, when my brother married an Italian woman, yeah, and she came into our family, Pakistani family. And of course, at first, you know, there's a bit kind of, oh, someone's different, okay? But soon my mum realized, you know what? We can have roti pizza, okay? She got the chapati out, man. She said, no, later, I'll show you how to do it. She got the roti out, and then she dashed some tomato and cheese on there. There you go. He said, you don't have to put it in the oven, you can do it this way. It's called cultural fusion. Okay, it's a beautiful thing. I want to see total cultural fusion everywhere. Okay, and why? Because that's what the point here is in the verse, لِتَعَرَّفُوا, that you may know one another, that you celebrate one another, that you recognize each other's difference and also have respect for one another. You don't violate the symbols of one another. You recognize together we enrich, and when we're separated we actually create, you know, static and societies that don't move forward. The future, you know, when we're talking about Brexit a lot, yeah, what has everyone been saying? I want my country back. I want my country forward. Okay, and forward means what? Forward means that, you know, the globalized world we live in is diverse. Is everyone coming together? You know what is the problem? And why is this verse so important? Because why, brothers and sisters? I want you to really think about this. The biggest problem that we have in the world at the moment is dealing with difference. That's it. It's dealing with difference. Being comfortable with difference. Accepting difference. Do you know most conflict is not real conflict? Yeah, anyway, I do conflict resolution, so most conflict is not real conflict. Most conflict, number one, is caused by perception. Whenever some people see me for the first time, they're thinking, oh, what's this geezer about? You know, what's he about? And people might have a perception. And you know, people my age will realize for a lot of our lives, we've had to try, we know that there is a perception of us, we change that, try to within a very short period of time. Most of it's not real, it's what we have in our mind. And most people, when you interact for the first time, there's three ways they do it. They have prejudice, they've already judged you, they're selective in how they look at you, or the third part, لِتَعَرَّفُوا, tell me about yourself. I want to know. Being open and understanding and called respectful inquiry. Not that I've already made an assumption about you. So the biggest problem we have on a global level, my brothers and sisters, is this. Just being comfortable with each other's difference. Understanding each other. And it's really bizarre, this. Because you know, we travel more than we've ever traveled before. And they always say that the world is a global village. You know, I can go to bizarre places around the world and I'll meet someone who is just usually 1 or 2 steps removed from me. And sometimes people like who I've bumped into over the years, bizarre. We meet people all over the world. It's a global village. But it's bizarre when we go across the global village, we don't go li ta'arrafu to find out. We go often because we are privileged people. We are people of privilege. Living in the wealthiest, one of the wealthiest countries in the world often. Now the point here I'm making is this, about knowing a difference. Not only is it a global village, we have all of this communicative technology in the world at the moment. We have ways to communicate with ourselves, you know, with such great ease across the whole globe. We have all of this communicative technology, but we profoundly misunderstand each other. It's bizarre how we profoundly misunderstand each other. Because it just seems, and this is interesting going back to the whole story of the Tower of Babel. Someone might ask me a question about that. Okay, because this verse actually challenges that whole notion. This verse says that if we start off with recognizing we are from the same origins, same family, that the diversity is a beautiful thing and that we've got to know each other and understand each other, then we don't have confusion. Li ta'arrafu. And then there is this statement there, which I believe is one of the most powerful statements of social justice I've ever come across. Inda akramakum indallahi atqakum. The most noble of you in the sight of your Creator, Allah, is the one who has taqwa, the quality of your hearts. So we know that immense, monumental speech of Martin Luther King, I have a dream, that people are judged by the content of the character, not by their outward appearance. So that particular speech. But Allah Ta'ala, He says this in the Quran. The best of you, not by externality, not by any position or status that you might have in the worldly sense. The best of you is the one who has the best hearts. And only Allah knows who has the best hearts. To judge in terms of any external characteristic, therefore, whether it be class or race or faith or whatever it is, has no basis in Islam whatsoever. And Allah Ta'ala is the one who knows what is best. Now, before I move on to, and the Prophet ﷺ, in his khutbatul wida, his final address that he gave to over 100,000 of his companions, he makes this statement. All mankind, and this is unequivocal, because obviously from someone who looks at this subject from a comparative point of view, what I find is generally that this level of explicit statement we do not find in religious texts over 14 centuries ago. Making it absolutely there's no, there can be no ambiguity here. Racism is evil, it is haram, it is impermissible. So the Prophet ﷺ, he makes it very clear. All mankind is from Adam and Eve. An Arab has no superiority over a non-Arab, nor a non-Arab over an Arab, nor white over black, nor black over white, except by piety and good actions. One day you will stand before Allah, your Creator, and you will be held to account for your actions. Making it absolutely clear. Any form of racism, whoever it is directed against, is something which is reprehensible. And I'll come on to where the origins of this, from we as a Muslim community, where we see the origins of this. But it's interesting to talk about Adam first, our father. Can anyone tell me in this room what Adam means in the Arabic language? Can anyone tell me? Have you ever perhaps thought about what is the definition, the etymology of it? No, you put your hand up too quickly. Tell me, I'm not going to ask you. You should be a bit cooler about that. Straight up there, like you want to be teacher's pet. No. And you're sitting in the front. You're sitting in the front as well. In the front. I want someone in the back. I want the bad boys in the back. What does Adam mean? Come on, brother at the back, right at the back, looking too cool for school. Come on, tell me. What does Adam mean? You don't know? Guess. Don't worry, it's not hard. Guess. Have you never thought about it? You've never thought about it? Okay, interesting. Okay, sisters in the middle here, this little collection of sisters. What is the term Adam? Anyone thought about what it might mean? And look, I'll give you a clue, sisters. Adam is created from clay. Where did that clay come from? This earth. How was it collected from the earth? From all over the places. And that in itself is amazing. Adam is created from clay. Where did that clay come from? And I'm not going to get into the science of it. This is about theology here. Okay, the clay came from all of the four corners of this earth. I've been in Yorkshire. We have Yorkshire sandstone. We have yellow. When I go to the southwest or southeast towards the coast, it's clay. It's white. When I was in Uganda, it was red. It was amazing red colour, the soil there. Other places I see it's black. It's amazing the symbolism of this in itself. That all of the hues and all of the textures and all of the gradients of all of the soils of this earth were collected together to fashion Adam. And when you mix all of that stuff together, sisters, I'm going to ask you, when you mix that stuff together, can you remember when you were kids and you had that plasticine? And it was all the different colours of the plasticine, and you thought, I ain't going to touch this because I know as soon as I mix it all together, it becomes one colour. Yes? And so can you remember what that colour is? Brown. Okay. So you're getting it, you're getting the point here. Brother, go on, what's Adam mean?
Tawny, the colour tawny.
Which is what?
A brownish colour.
Which is, really, tell me as it is. It's black. It's black. The term Adam itself, it means black in the Fusha. It means black. Now what is very significant, because I said the symbolism of it is what? All of the earths from all over the part of the earth. And we are the children of Adam. So we compose of all of that. And I love it that my DNA, and I'm going to touch on it now from a scientific point of view, my DNA is mixed with all of your DNA. You know, we've got these strange programs sometimes when people want to say, oh, my DNA is pure, this whole idea of eugenics, which has said itself is a complete falsehood, scientific racism. Okay, led into social Darwinism, which then legitimated the slave trade. I'm going to leave that to perhaps Rima to talk about. But, that in itself, and just a side point, this is some ta'weel that I made, which is not in contradiction to the religion. Adam's wife is Hawa. Hawa is created from, anyone? From the rib of Adam, the rib of Adam. I know feminists don't like it when I say that, okay? But I don't see it in any way derogatory, because the rib, it comes from your backbone. It actually supports your posture and actually covers your internal organs. So if anything, what we're saying is that women from the rib of Adam actually play a fundamental role in completing men. Actually, that's a side point in itself. What colour is a rib, anyone? Tell me. White. What colour was Adam? Black. Alright? So what do we have there in terms of the first relationship there? Anyone? The first interracial relationship. I know some people don't like it when I say that, but look, this is it. We're looking at it al-zahir, as it is. And from that we have this beautiful, amazing diversity that we see in the world at the moment. Okay. And وَلَقَدْ كَرَمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ, and we have honoured the children of Adam. And again, this is our Islamic reference points. These are our Islamic fundamental values. We believe, because we come from the same origins, we are a human family. Truly, we are a human family. And therefore, every human being from our family should be afforded the same dignity and respect as the next person. And this is a very important statement that Malcolm X also made. He says, unless each and every single one of my people has the same privilege that I have, then it doesn't mean anything to me. I'm a privileged person. I'm privileged in lots of ways living in this country. That privilege doesn't mean a damn thing unless each and every single one of my family has the same privilege. That's what that means, and it's exemplified. This quality, I'll come on to it later, in the very beautiful hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. لا يؤمن أحدكم حتى يحب لأخيه ما يحب لنفسه. You do not believe until you love for your brother and sister. And Imam Nawawi rahimahullah, he said this refers to our human family, brothers and sisters. You do not believe until you love for your brother and your sister what you love for yourself. The same privilege you have, the same security you have, the same opportunity that you have, the same justice that you have, the same food on your plate that you have. It goes on and on. Exactly the same. Because we dignify human beings. And one of the most ignoble things to do, therefore, is to denigrate someone purely based on what you possess yourself, your external appearance, pigmentation. Now, one of the interesting things about the Human Genome Project, and I'm not a scientist or a geneticist, I'm sure there's someone else who's much cleverer on this subject than me in this room, but from what I understand, this is do you know, as human beings, really, we are 94% exactly the same. Only 6% variation in our genetic code is responsible for all of the diversity that we see in the world at the moment. Only 6%. Some other studies say even less than that. 94% the same, only 6% difference. But guess what? We can't even handle that 6% difference. That 6% difference is something that's too difficult for us to comprehend and come to terms with. And the Human Genome Project, all of this research here, if anything, it just completely corroborates what Islam already has taught us. We are all the same. We have the same origins. We have the same genetic code. We have the same fundamental, like I said, essence to what we are as beings. So, and again, this is it. So that's why as-sabiyya, which is the word in Arabic for this partisanship or racism and racial pride, is something haram, a major sin, kaba'ir. And just one example is how the Prophet ﷺ said, anyone who has one dharra, and that means a mustard seed of pride, the paradise is, is unlawful for them, is barred for them. So they asked the Prophet ﷺ, what is al-kibr? What is this kibr? He said two things: to deny the truth and to look down upon another. To look down upon another thinking you are superior than them. And the verse is again, لا يسخر قوم من قوم عسى أن يكونوا خيرا منهم. Do not let one group of people look down upon another group of people because perhaps they are better than them. When Malcolm and Muhammad Ali first came as black Muslims into the world, there were people who were denigrating them, no doubt. Because they said they're black. And we are better than them. And then Allah really, when it comes to fruition, you see the reality of that. So that, he said, and one dharra, one mustard seed of that means Jannah is haram. It's not impermissible for you. Because as Muslims, we believe, you could say, our theology, our deen, it teaches us. The first sin was the sin of shaitan, Iblis. And what was that sin? We as Muslims believe that Satan, Iblis, is a jinn made of fire. I'm not getting to this, that in itself is a long talk. And as a commander and a general of Allah Ta'ala, when Adam was fashioned, and the soul was blown into him, Allah ordered the angels to prostrate before him, including Iblis to prostrate. And he refused a command of his creator. And the reason he refused is what we've heard every racist thereafter say: I am better than him. I am made from fire, he is made from clay. He refused. That's the original sin. That sin is why we hate racism in every shape, way and form. And when I hear it, this is our jihad. This is our struggle to oppose this. And it's hard. It makes you unpopular. As I said, in our community, we don't like to face up to the reality that we hear racism in so many forms. Sectarianism, tribalism. And as I said, every form of race-based hate. The reason as-sabiyya, the other aspect of it, is so impermissible is this. Because you will give honor to someone not based on their values and their qualities and their characteristics and their behavior. You honor them just because they come from your clan, your gang, your group, your tribe, your people. You deny honor to people who are worthy of honor, just as Satan did to Adam. And what the bizarre thing is, Satan thought he was superior because he's made of fire. Little did he know that clay from all the four corners of this earth is actually, if you think about it, perhaps more superior than his essence. The Prophet ﷺ said, none of you truly believes until you love for your brother what you love for yourself. Now it's interesting, again, going back to Malcolm X's biography, this was an interesting reference. When he left for the Hajj, he went to an Egyptian doctor in New York for a reference. He wrote in the reference. And as they parted, the Egyptian doctor said to him, none of you truly believes until you love for your brother what you love for yourself. It was an interesting parting gift, that piece of advice. And then when he went to the Hajj, it was almost like he infected him with this virus of this hadith here, this idea. So Malcolm X had a reference point when he actually went on the Hajj. And what's really significant, and I'd love to talk about this at length, but I'm already up to my time, is this. The amazing thing about Malcolm X was a black separatist. He believed that black and white people in America just could not live together. He wanted separation of the races. His journey on the Hajj totally shattered his paradigm. And he came back and recognized that, no, all humanity has to work together towards the betterment of every other person. And he believed that he would do, and he said, I will work with everyone and anyone towards the justice of my people. So he became expansive. And I always say, when you're a separatist and narrow-minded, everyone's going to let you be. As soon as you believe in working universally and encompassing all of humanity in a common struggle towards justice and goodness, you become dangerous. And at that point, Malcolm X, rahimahullah, became dangerous. And as my son, as Ismail reminded me today is the anniversary of the death of Malcolm X, yes? Rahimahullah. May Allah Ta'ala have mercy upon him and grant him Jannatul Firdaus al-A'la. Ameen. So, so this is an interesting point. And the point is that this hadith is a short hadith, very short statement, easy to memorize, extremely difficult to put into practice. Moving on, again, the justice principle, Allah Ta'ala, he talks about, be just, even against your own self, your parents, your kinsman, whether he be rich or poor, Allah has more right than you. So the point of the fact is that Islam affords unequivocal justice. This verse on justice is actually in the Harvard School of Law, up in pride of place. It's one of the most definitive statements on justice that there is. Justice is for everyone. And this one, even though it is against wal aqrabin, those people who are from your own self, no bias there. And a beautiful story. Bilal is my brother. Now, one of the interesting things we always hear about Bilal is this. Bilal was the black slave, given manumission through Abu Bakr. And I just want to correct this point here. Bilal was not black. Okay, I just want to make this absolutely clear. We always hold this here. Bilal was mixed race, actually. He was Abyssinian in origin, but obviously in his lineage, obviously there were Arab tribes as well. So yes, it may have been dark in pigmentation. But the interesting thing about the Arabs as a race is that the inhabitants of the Arabian Peninsula are actually dark in pigmentation anyway. The Adnaniya, which are the Arabs from the northern part of the Arabian Peninsula, I'm getting too technical here. Obviously they're with Bilad al-Sham, with the land of Iraq and Syria. Obviously you had European influence there, so it reflects it. The point here is this. The Arabian society, in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, this is unprecedented, by the way. Unprecedented, do you have examples like this? Was a society that was highly stratified, based upon tribal superiority. In many ways you could say it was even more oppressive. The caste system. Caste systems are generally the most oppressive systems in the world, because you're born into the caste, you can never move out. Your birth disables you and disadvantages you for the rest of your whole life. That's why we oppose caste in every shape and form in which it manifests itself. The evil of caste discrimination and oppression. Now, so it was a highly stratified society. The tribe which is at the top, and then you had tribes below, and because they were low down in the hierarchy, then it was legitimate to oppress them. And Bilal, being a slave, and also Abyssinian in origin, he was right there in the lower tiers of the lower levels of that society. The Prophet ﷺ, Muhammad ibn Abdullah, he was from a tribe called Banu Hashim. Banu Hashim was a subset of the tribe called Quraysh. Quraysh were the guys at the top. And Banu Hashim was the best of Al-Quraysh. And the best of Al-Quraysh was Muhammad ibn Abdullah, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When Bilal became a Muslim, he became the same as the best in that society. He became equivalent to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Yani in terms of iman, in terms of obviously as a Muslim, in status. In terms of taqwa, that's a different issue. But and that's how that society was completely shook. Because nothing broke the hierarchy of the society except La ilaha illallah, these words, which is the strongest glue in the world in my view. Bilal, by saying the kalima, became a Muslim, and therefore the best in that society was his akhi, was his brother. The Prophet Muhammad became his brother. So it became incumbent upon him to free him from slavery. And as we know the story of how he was then manumitted from slavery by Abu Bakr. Because he has to love you. And that's why Quraysh was so against this. Because they say the slaves will revolt. They say this will completely undermine the social fabric of our racist, oppressive society. We can't be the upper levels of this society anymore. Because as soon as you become a Muslim from the lower levels of society, you're equivalent to Muhammad ibn Abdullah. You're his brother. And you have to be treated exactly the same way that he is treated. It's earth-shattering. It truly is earth-shattering. Not only did Bilal then obviously become, as we know, one of the most beloved companions of the Prophet ﷺ. So when the Prophet ﷺ said to Bilal, I heard your footsteps in paradise. I heard your footsteps in paradise. You know, when it came for the adhan, when the Muslims conquered Makkah after 21 years of oppression, the person who was the first to make the call to prayer climbed up on top of the Kaaba and made the call to prayer. The first time it had been done in Makkah was Bilal ibn Rabi radiallahu anhu. May Allah be pleased with him. And it was interesting because those who were newly converted to Islam, they saw this and it was a spectacle to them. They said, what is this black man doing on top of the Kaaba? Because they still hadn't eradicated that. It's interesting when As-Sabiyah would take place, the Prophet, when he saw the people, his companions, having these attitudes, he says, these are the signs of Jahiliyyah. These are the signs of ignorance. And he referred to it in very, very derogatory terms that I can't really remember. So Bilal is my brother. It's very familiar. He was also the first person to make the adhan in Jerusalem as well. Both Makkah and Jerusalem. Now, treaty with the Jews. You see, Islam not only had that eradicated tribalism and racism, but also the Prophet ﷺ in Medina developed the first, and as a person who studied this, first example of a multicultural, multi-faith society. You know, truly pluralistic society. There were 3 Jewish tribes in Medina. The Prophet ﷺ approached them and made this treaty with them. Sahifatul Medina, it's called, the Manifesto of Medina. The Jews are one community with the Muslims. The Jews will profess their religion and the Muslims theirs, i.e. they were given. And the Jews as a race, as one of the Semitic races, and interestingly, Semitic races are 2. The original Semite was Abraham. 2 races, Ishaq, Isaac and Ishmael. Okay, the Arabs and the children of Israel. So, you know, anti-Semitism isn't just something which is towards people of Jewish it's something which is to all of the Semitic races. So the Jews are one community. I can't go through the whole thing. The point I want to make about this is this. When I see anti-Semitism, when I see Muslims being derogatory to Jews based on their race, I will fight those Muslims and I will defend my Jewish brothers and sisters because no one has a right to be racist towards. And I did this actually it was interesting, even though theologically I disagree, and certainly sometimes in terms of politics I disagree. Just because politics and theology does not mean that we have a right to be racist against anyone. And I had an incident in Bradford where, you know, a Jewish reporter came and was physically assaulted by individuals. And, you know, I gave a statement for that, for the individual, against those Muslims who did it. Why? Because, you know, I can't pick and choose. No one has the right to abuse someone just because he is Jewish, just based on their race. And likewise in the time of Umar radiallahu anhu, when he received the keys to Bayt al-Maqdis, Jerusalem, this is the first time that Jews were allowed to come back and worship at their holy sites. Okay, finishing now, just finishing. Yeah, as I said, Malcolm X, he had this profound experience when he went on the Hajj. And this is just a bit of an extract. Okay, there were tens of thousands of pilgrims from all over the world. They were all colours, from blue-eyed blondes to black-skinned Africans. But we were all participating in the same ritual, displaying a spirit of unity and brotherhood that my experience in America had led me to believe never could exist between white and non-white. We were truly all the same, because their belief in one God had removed the white from their minds, the white from their behaviour, and the white from their attitude. You may be shocked by these words coming from me, but on this pilgrimage, what I've seen and experienced has forced me to rearrange much of my thought patterns previously held and to toss aside some of my previous conclusions. So he talks about that if you embrace the oneness of Allah, you embrace the oneness of humanity. And it eradicates difference. You don't even see difference. You just see the beauty of the diversity that Allah Ta'ala has created. And I think that's where I'll stop. Jazakallah khair.